First, let's begin with some context. The 1983 Washington quarter was minted in large numbers, with over 673 million struck at the Philadelphia Mint and over 500 million at the Denver Mint. There were no proof coins made at the San Francisco Mint for circulation in 1983, as that year's proof sets were made entirely at San Francisco using different processes. So the standard 1983 quarters found in circulation are business strikes made for everyday use. Now you might be wondering, why does a 1983 quarter sometimes appear with a black or dark shade? These coins were not intentionally made this way by the U.S. Mint. In fact, the black coloration is typically a result of environmental exposure or chemical reactions after the coin has been in circulation for a long time. Factors like heat, humidity, oxidation, or even contact with certain materials can cause the coin's copper-nickel surface to darken or turn nearly black. In some cases, the coin might have been buried, exposed to fire, or subjected to artificial toning by individuals hoping to make it look rare. Because of this, a black-shaded 1983 quarter doesn't automatically make it a valuable error coin. Most of the time, coins like this are considered damaged or environmentally toned. They generally hold no extra numismatic value unless they also feature other collectible traits like a mint error, off-center strike, or high-grade condition. That being said, 1983 quarters themselves do have some collector interest, especially in higher grades. That's because no uncirculated mint sets were released by the U.S. Mint in 1982 or 1983. That makes high-quality business strikes from those years a little more difficult to find in pristine condition. As a result, a 1983 Washington quarter, graded mint state 65 or higher by a professional grading service like PCGS or NGC, can be worth significantly more than face value. Prices can range from $20 to over $500 depending on the grade and demand. Now let's talk numbers. If you have a typical circulated 1983 quarter with black toning and no significant errors, it's likely worth only its face value, 25 cents. However, if your coin is in exceptional condition with full luster, sharp details, and minimal contact marks, it might be worth getting it graded. Mint state examples without toning have sold for $100 to $200, and those with extremely high grades like MS67 or MS68 can go for even more. On the other hand, if your black-shaded coin also has a verified mint error, like being struck on the wrong planchet or showing doubling on the design, it could command a much higher price. Some known 1983 error quarters have sold for hundreds, and even thousands of dollars depending on the type and rarity of the error. So to summarize, a black or dark-toned 1983 Washington quarter isn't necessarily rare or valuable on its own. Its color is most likely due to environmental exposure, not a special minting process. However, 1983 quarters in general do have collector demand in high grades due to the absence of mint sets that year. And if your coin features an error or is in mint condition, it could be worth much more than face value. Next up, the 1966 Washington quarter was part of a major shift in U.S. coinage. Prior to 1965, quarters were made of 90% silver. But by the mid-1960s, due to rising silver prices and a coin shortage, the U.S. Mint changed the composition. The 1966 quarter was struck using a clad composition. That's a copper core sandwiched between two layers of copper-nickel alloy. This new format eliminated silver content completely, and that's one reason why many 1966 quarters found in circulation today don't have much intrinsic metal value. In 1966, over 821 million Washington quarters were minted, all without mint marks. That's because, during the years 1965 to 1967, the U.S. Mint temporarily removed mint marks to discourage coin hoarding and speculation. So whether your 1966 quarter came from Philadelphia, Denver, or San Francisco, it won't show a mint mark. Now, if you're holding a 1966 quarter in bad condition, let's say it's heavily worn, scratched, or stained, it likely won't be worth more than its face value. In circulated or damaged condition, these coins typically trade for 25 cents. They were made in huge numbers, and without silver content, there's no melt value to consider. However, there are a few exceptions to keep in mind. First, error coins from 1966 can be valuable. Some 1966 quarters have been discovered with minting errors, such as off-center strikes, doubled dies, or coins struck on the wrong planchets. For example, a 1966 quarter struck on a nickel planchet or with visible doubling can sell for $50 to several $100s, depending on the error and its condition. These are rare, but always worth looking for. Second, 1966 quarters in high, mint state condition, coins that have never been circulated and still have full original luster, can be valuable to collectors. If professionally graded by PCGS or NGC as MS66 or higher, they can fetch $30 to over $100. The highest grades, like MS67 Plus, have sold for several $100s at auction. But if you've got a quarter that's seen better days, the value remains low unless there's something unusual about it, like an error or a rare die variety. So what should you do if you have a 1966 Washington quarter in bad condition? It's a great opportunity to learn about coin grading and what makes some coins more desirable than others. It might not be valuable now, but it's a piece of history from a key moment in U.S. coinage when silver was removed and mint marks were temporarily eliminated. That makes it worth hanging on to for educational or sentimental value, even if it won't bring a big payout. Next up, the 1974 Washington quarter was minted just a couple of years before the United States celebrated its bicentennial. It was a time of high coin production, inflation concerns, and no silver in circulation coins. So what makes the 1974 quarter special? Let's explore. First, a bit of background. The Washington quarter was first introduced in 1932 to honor George Washington's 200th birthday. By the time we get to 1974, the quarter had already gone through one major change, the removal of silver in 1965. So, like all quarters from 1965 onward, the 1974 version is made of a copper-nickel-clad composition. That means it's not made of silver, and its base metal content is worth less than face value. In 1974, over 800 million quarters were struck at the Philadelphia Mint, with no mint mark, and over 350 million were struck at the Denver Mint, marked with a small D on the obverse, next to Washington's ponytail. There were also proof versions minted in San Francisco, bearing an S mint mark, but those were not intended for circulation and were sold in special proof sets. Now, let's talk about value in fine condition. A 1974 Washington quarter in fine, F12 grade, shows moderate wear. You can still see all the major design elements like George Washington's hair details and the eagle's feathers on the reverse, but they are flattened. These coins are common and easy to find in pocket change or old coin jars. In this condition, the coin's value is generally just 25 cents, its face value. That's because there are so many of them still in existence, and they don't contain any precious metal. Even if the coin is decades old, it's not considered rare or especially collectible in average circulated condition. However, if your 1974 quarter is in higher grades, like uncirculated mint state condition, it could be worth more. Coins graded MS65 or higher can sell for $5 to $20. While those in exceptionally high grades like MS67 or with eye-catching luster and strike quality can sell for $100 or more, especially if professionally graded by services like PCGS or NGC. There are also rare errors from this year. Some 1974 quarters were struck on the wrong planchets or showed doubling of the lettering or design, known as doubled die errors. These are quite rare, but if you spot one, its value can rise significantly, sometimes selling for hundreds of dollars, depending on the error and condition. So what should you do if you have a 1974 quarter in fine condition? While it likely doesn't carry any special value to collectors, it's still a great way to learn about modern U.S. coinage. Keep it if you enjoy collecting by date, and definitely inspect it closely for any signs of errors or unusual features. In summary, a 1974 Washington quarter in fine condition is typically worth its face value, 25 cents. But if you find one in uncirculated condition or with a known error, it could be worth considerably more. Either way, it's a neat piece of history from an era when America was preparing to celebrate 200 years of independence. The Washington quarter was first introduced in 1932 to honor the 200th anniversary of George Washington's birth. It became so popular that it replaced the standing Liberty quarter and continued to be minted every year since. By 1995, the coin had already been part of everyday American life for over 60 years. The 1995 P quarter was minted at the Philadelphia Mint, which is indicated by the small P mint mark on the front of the coin just next to Washington's ponytail. Over 1.1 billion of these quarters were struck that year, making it one of the most common modern quarters in circulation. Like all quarters made after 1965, the 1995 P Washington quarter is composed of a copper-nickel clad, not silver. This means that its intrinsic metal value is very low, and most of these coins are still only worth their face value of 25 cents in circulated condition. If you find a 1995 P quarter in fine or very fine condition, meaning it shows signs of wear, but the major details are still visible, it will still be worth only face value. However, coins that were never used and have been preserved in mint state condition can be worth a little more. In uncirculated grades such as MS-63 to MS-65, these coins can sell for around $1 to $5, depending on their luster, strike, and overall eye appeal. The most valuable examples are those graded MS-67 or higher by professional grading services like PCGS or NGC. These high-grade specimens are rare and can fetch $50 to $100 or more at auction. But keep in mind, such high-quality examples must be nearly perfect and free from marks, scratches, or dull areas. There are also some rare error coins from 1995 that can significantly increase a coin's value. Some of the known errors include off-center strikes, double-die obverse errors, and coins struck on the wrong planche. These types of errors are not common, but if you happen to find one, its value could range from a few $100s to several thousand, depending on the severity and uniqueness of the error. Always examine your coins closely with a magnifying glass or under proper lighting to look for anything unusual. In conclusion, the 1995 P Washington quarter is a very common coin, and in circulated condition, it is usually worth only its face value. However, uncirculated and error varieties can carry a premium for collectors. It's a coin that represents modern American coinage and is an essential part of any complete Washington quarter collection. If you come across one in exceptional condition or find a strange error, it may be worth having it professionally graded. Next up, the Washington quarter was first introduced in 1932 to honor George Washington's 200th birthday. It was originally intended as a one-year commemorative coin, but its design was so well received that it became the standard quarter in circulation. Fast forward to 1981, and the Washington quarter had already been through several changes, most notably the switch from 90% silver to copper-nickel, clad in 1965. The 1981 P quarter was struck at the Philadelphia Mint, and it features the P mint mark on the obverse side of the coin, just to the right of Washington's ponytail. That year, the Philadelphia Mint produced over 601 million of these coins, which means they are still very common in circulation today. The composition of the 1981 P quarter is the standard clad formula used for modern quarters. An outer layer, made of 75% copper and 25% nickel, bonded to a pure copper core. The coin has a diameter of 24.3 millimeters and weighs 5.67 grams. On the obverse, it features the familiar portrait of George Washington, designed by John Flanagan, while the reverse shows the heraldic eagle with wings spread, holding arrows, and olive branches, a design that remained in use until 1998. Now let's talk about value. In circulated condition, the 1981 P Washington quarter is typically only worth its face value of 25 cents. It's a coin you can still find in pocket change or coin jars, and unless it is in uncirculated condition, it doesn't carry any special premium. However, collectors do look for high-grade examples in mint state. An uncirculated 1981 P quarter, graded MS63, might sell for about $1 to $3. In MS65 condition, which is considered gem quality, the coin could fetch around $5 to $10. The real value comes with coins graded MS67 or higher, which are rare and highly sought after by collectors. These top-grade examples can sell for $50 to $100 or more, especially if certified by PCGS or NGC. There are also a few known era coins from this year that can raise a quarter's value significantly. Some 1981 P quarters have been found with off-center strikes, clipped planchets, or other striking errors. These can be worth anywhere from a few dollars to several hundred, depending on the severity and uniqueness of the error. Always inspect your coins carefully for anything out of the ordinary. In summary, the 1981 P Washington quarter is a common coin with high mintage, and in most cases it will only be worth face value. However, coins in exceptional uncirculated condition or with rare mint errors can be worth considerably more. If you happen to have one that looks flawless or has an unusual strike, it might be worth having it examined by a professional grading service. Next up, the Washington quarter has been a staple of American currency since 1932, originally designed to commemorate the 200th birthday of George Washington. By 1982, it had been in circulation for 50 years. However, that year brought some important changes in the way coins were produced. The 1982 D quarter was minted in Denver, as shown by the D mint mark on the obverse of the coin near Washington's ponytail. That year, the Denver Mint struck over 480 million quarters, which means the coin is still fairly common in circulation. One unique factor about the 1982 D quarter is that it was produced during a period of U.S. mint cost cutting. In 1982 and 1983, the mint did not release uncirculated mint sets, which made it harder for collectors to find high-quality examples of these coins. As a result, uncirculated 1982 D quarters in excellent condition are somewhat harder to come by than in other years. The composition of the 1982 D quarter is standard for modern quarters. It is made of a copper nickel clad, meaning the coin has a copper core with a nickel alloy outer layer. It weighs 5.67 grams and measures 24.3 millimeters in diameter. Now, let's talk about the black color appearance. Many people come across 1982 D quarters that look unusually dark or almost black. This is usually not due to a rare mint error, but rather environmental damage or long-term exposure to the elements. A black or dark-toned quarter may have been buried in soil, exposed to chemicals, or stored in poor conditions for decades. The dark color can also result from oxidation of the nickel layer. While these dark coins can look interesting, they usually do not increase the coin's value unless the toning is attractive, even, and naturally developed, something that collectors may appreciate in rare cases. As for value, a circulated 1982 D quarter, even with dark or black coloration, is usually worth just its face value of 25 cents. However, if you find one in uncirculated or mint state condition, especially graded MS65 or higher, it can be worth more due to the difficulty of finding pristine examples from that year. In MS63 condition, a 1982 D quarter might be worth around $2 to $4. In MS65, values can rise to $10 to $20, and in MS67 or higher, the coin could be worth over $100 depending on the quality and market demand. Rare mint errors from the 1982 D quarter series can also bring high value. These include off-center strikes, double dies, and missing clad layers. A missing clad layer could cause the coin to have a copper appearance on one side and might be mistaken for a blackened coin at first glance. Such errors can range from $50 to several hundred, depending on the severity and certification by a grading service. In summary, the 1982 D Washington quarter is a common coin, but it's still an important one to examine closely. Dark or black-toned examples are usually caused by environmental exposure and typically do not carry extra value unless they show natural and appealing toning. However, if you have a high-grade uncirculated version or a known mint error, it could be worth far more than face value. Thanks for watching. If you enjoy learning about coins and collecting tips, be sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell icon so you never miss an update. Drop a comment below if you have a 1982 D quarter or if you've come across a coin with unusual coloring. Until next time, happy collecting. First up, today, we're diving into the story of the 1984 D Washington $quarter coin. A piece of everyday change that many Americans have held in their hands without realizing the history it carries. Though it's not a rare or high-value coin in most conditions, the 1984 D Washington quarter still has a unique place in the timeline of United States coinage. The Washington quarter was first introduced in 1932, replacing the standing Liberty quarter. Its design was created to honor the 200th anniversary of George Washington's birth. The obverse features a profile portrait of Washington, designed by John Flanagan, and this design remained largely unchanged until the introduction of the State Quarters program in 1999. On the reverse side, you'll find an eagle with outstretched wings, clutching arrows and an olive branch beneath it, a classic symbol of America's strength and desire for peace. The 1984 D quarter was minted in Denver, as indicated by the D mint mark located on the obverse side, just to the right of the ribbon in Washington's hair. That year, the Denver Mint struck over 546 million Washington quarters, making it a common coin by mintage numbers. Because of its high production, this coin is easy to find in circulation even today. The 1984 D quarter is made from a copper nickel-clad composition, which is a copper core surrounded by an outer layer of 75% copper and 25% nickel. This composition was introduced in 1965 as a cost-saving measure when the U.S. Mint moved away from using 90% silver in its coinage. The clad composition lacks intrinsic precious metal value, meaning the base value of a worn 1984 D quarter is just 25 cents unless it has exceptional qualities. Now let's talk about its value in circulated, no-fine condition. No-fine, or heavily circulated coins, typically show a lot of wear. The hairlines on Washington's portrait are flat, the eagle's feather details are smoothed out, and the fields may be covered with scratches, nicks, or discoloration. In this condition, the coin doesn't hold any significant numismatic premium. Most 1984 D quarters in average circulated condition are worth their face value, 25 cents. However, if the coin is in uncirculated or mint state condition, meaning it shows no signs of wear and has strong luster, it can be worth more. Mint. State examples graded MS-65 or better may be valued between $1 and $5 depending on collector demand and overall quality. Exceptional specimens, such as those graded MS-67 or higher by professional services like PCGS or NGC, can command values of $50 or more. That said, such coins are rare, and grading is critical in determining that kind of value. There are also a few interesting aspects to keep in mind when looking at 1984 D quarters. Some collectors search for errors or varieties such as die cracks, off-center strikes, or double dies. However, there are no widely known or dramatic mint errors specifically associated with the 1984 D quarter. If you happen to come across one with an odd minting flaw, it might still be worth examining under magnification or submitting for grading, especially if the error is visually clear and unusual. In summary, the 1984 D Washington quarter is a common circulated coin from the modern era of American coinage. Its high mintage and widespread availability make it an accessible piece for beginner collectors. In circulated condition without any special errors or features, its value remains at 25 cents. But for those interested in American history and the evolution of our currency, it still serves as a meaningful reminder of our nation's past and its first president. Next up, we're taking a closer look at the 1981 D Washington $quarter coin, an everyday piece of American currency that carries more historical importance than most people realize. While this coin may not be especially rare or highly valuable in fine condition, understanding its background helps deepen our appreciation for the coins we use and collect. The Washington quarter was first introduced in 1932 to honor the 200th birthday of George Washington, the first president of the United States. Designed by sculptor John Flanagan, the obverse features a left-facing portrait of Washington with the inscriptions "Liberty, in God We Trust," and the date. This iconic design remained in use for decades until the 1999 launch of the State Quarters program. The reverse side of the 1981 D quarter displays the familiar heraldic eagle with wings spread wide, clutching a bundle of arrows above an olive branch, symbols of strength and peace. In 1981, the Denver Mint struck approximately 575 million Washington quarters bearing the D Mint mark, which can be found on the obverse side to the right of Washington's ponytail ribbon. This high mintage means the 1981 D quarter is considered a common coin, and examples are still widely found in circulation across the United States today. The composition of the 1981 D quarter is the standard copper nickel-clad formula introduced. In 1965, it consists of a pure copper core with outer layers of 75% copper and 25% nickel. This clad composition lacks any silver content, which is why post-1964 quarters generally have minimal melt value. Now let's talk about what fine condition means and how that affects the coin's value. A coin in fine condition has seen moderate circulation. While most of the design elements remain visible, some details, such as Washington's hair strands or the eagle's feathers, may be worn down or smoothed out. The coin may also show minor nicks or scratches from handling and pocket wear, but it is still considered collectible as a representation of the coin's type and era. Because the 1981 D Washington quarter is so common and was not struck in silver, its value in fine condition remains at face value, 25 cents. There is no additional premium for circulated examples unless the coin has some unusual variety or error. However, if the coin is in mint state condition, meaning no signs of wear and full luster, it may fetch a higher price. Uncirculated examples. Graded MS65 or above can sell for $5 to $20, and coins with exceptional eye appeal and grades over MS67 may be worth even more to serious collectors. But for fine condition coins, the value is largely symbolic and historical rather than monetary. There are a few things collectors might look out for when examining a 1981 D quarter. Occasionally, coins from this period can exhibit minor die, cracks, weak strikes, or off-center minting, features that, if dramatic enough, could raise the coin's value among error coin collectors. However, no major varieties or famous errors are widely known for the 1981 D quarter, so these cases are rare and must be authenticated to carry any premium. In conclusion, the 1981 D Washington quarter is a typical example of U.S. coinage from the early 1980s. It represents a stable time in the country's monetary system, during which billions of quarters were produced with a consistent and recognizable design. Although a 1981 D quarter in fine condition holds no significant numismatic premium, it remains a part of America's rich numismatic legacy and continues to be a staple of everyday commerce. Holding a coin like this connects you with over 4 decades of American history, from the era of Ronald Reagan's presidency to the present day. Next up, the Washington Quarter Series began in 1932 as a one-year commemorative coin marking the 200th anniversary of George Washington's birth. But due to its popularity, it became the standard design for the quarter dollar and remained so for over 65 years. The obverse of the 1995 P quarter continues to feature the classic portrait of George Washington, designed by John Flanagan. It shows Washington facing left, with the inscriptions, "Liberty, in God we trust," and the year 1995 below. On the reverse, we see the familiar heraldic eagle with outstretched wings, perched on a bundle of arrows with olive branches. Beneath, symbols of both strength and peace. Now let's talk about the minting specifics. The P mint mark on this quarter tells us that it was minted in Philadelphia. In 1995, the Philadelphia Mint produced over 1.1 billion Washington quarters, an enormous mintage. Because of this high production volume, the 1995 P quarter is considered very common and widely available, especially in circulated condition. Like other modern quarters from this era, the 1995 P quarter is made of a copper-nickel-clad composition. It has a solid copper core and an outer layer made of 75% copper and 25% nickel. This composition was introduced in 1965 to replace the 90% silver content that earlier quarters contained. As a result, modern quarters like the 1995 P don't carry any intrinsic precious metal value, meaning their base value is tied directly to their condition and collector interest. In fine condition, the 1995 P Washington quarter will show noticeable wear from circulation. This includes flattened high points, such as the details in Washington's hair and the eagle's feathers, as well as minor scratches, discoloration, and possible contact marks. Even with this wear, the coin remains easily identifiable and retains all of its major design elements. Because this coin is so common and has no silver content, its value in fine condition is essentially its face value, 25 cents. There is no collectible premium for worn examples unless they exhibit rare errors or varieties. However, if you happen to find a 1995 P quarter in uncirculated or mint state condition, with full luster and no visible wear, it can be worth more. Mint state examples graded MS65 by services like PCGS or NGC can be valued around $2 to $5. Coins graded MS67 or higher, which are much harder to find, can be worth up to $50 or more depending on quality and demand. One thing to be aware of is that the 1995 P quarter does not have any major known errors or varieties that significantly increase its value. Still, collectors often check for unusual minting issues like off-center strikes, broad strikes, die clashes, or doubling. If you believe you found a coin with one of these features, it may be worth having it evaluated by a professional to determine its authenticity and value. So, what does all of this mean for you as a collector or someone who just found a 1995 P quarter in your change? If it's in fine circulated condition, its value remains at 25 cents. But it's still a great example of late 20th century American coinage. It represents the final years of the classic Washington quarter design before the U.S. Mint launched the state quarters program in 1999, a move that would forever change how we collect quarters. In the end, the 1995 P quarter is a common but historical coin. It reminds us of a time before state designs took over, and it still honors George Washington with dignity and pride. Even if it isn't worth a fortune, it's part of a legacy that spans nearly a century, and that alone makes it worth a closer look. Next up, the 1985 D Washington quarter dollar coin. While this coin is extremely common and still widely used today, it carries a fascinating history and some collectible value worth exploring, especially for those interested in American numismatics. The Washington quarter has been a part of U.S. coinage since 1932. Originally introduced to commemorate the 200th birthday of George Washington, it quickly became the regular issue for the quarter dollar. The design we see on the 1985 D quarter remained largely unchanged from its original form, with only minor updates over the decades. On the obverse side, we find the familiar left-facing bust of George Washington, designed by John Flanagan. The inscriptions "Liberty," "In God We Trust," and the date 1985 surround the portrait. On the reverse, the quarter features a heraldic eagle perched on a bundle of arrows above an olive branch, symbolizing both military strength and the hope for peace. The D Mint mark found on this coin identifies it as being struck at the Denver Mint. In 1985, the Denver Mint produced a massive number of these quarters, over 519 million in total. Because of this high montage, the 1985 D quarter is considered very common and easy to find in circulation even today. That abundance, combined with its modern copper-nickel composition, means that the coin doesn't hold significant value in most conditions. The 1985 D quarter, like other quarters minted after 1965, was made from a clad composition consisting of a pure copper core and outer layers made of 75% copper and 25% nickel. This clad metal composition gives the coin its silvery appearance, but also means it has no silver value. So when it comes to determining how much this coin is worth, the condition becomes a key factor. In average circulated condition, which includes coins graded as fine, the 1985 D Washington quarter is worth its face value, just 25 cents. Fine. Condition generally means the coin has moderate wear. Washington's hair details will be worn but still visible, and the eagle's feathers on the reverse will be slightly faded from circulation. The rim may show light signs of wear as well, but the coin remains fully recognizable and intact. While most circulated 1985 D quarters are worth face value, uncirculated or high-grade specimens can bring more interest from collectors. A coin, in mint state 65 or better, with full original luster and no signs of wear, might sell for between $5 and $15. At the highest end, coins graded MS 67 or above, especially those with strong strikes and eye appeal, can command prices around $100 or more. However, finding a coin of that quality in loose circulation is rare. As of now, there are no major known errors or varieties associated with the 1985 D Washington quarter. However, as with any coin, it's always worth checking for minting mistakes, such as off-center strikes, die cracks, or doubling. Some collectors are particularly interested in these types of mint errors, which can occasionally push the value of a coin significantly higher. If you suspect you have a coin with an unusual feature, it might be worth submitting it to a professional grading service for authentication. Even though the 1985 D quarter is not considered a rare or high-value coin, it still plays an important role in the long and evolving story of U.S. currency. This coin belongs to the final era of the traditional eagle-back quarter design, just before the state quarters program was introduced in 1999. In that sense, the 1985 D quarter is part of the final chapter in a decades-long design legacy that helped define modern American coinage. So if you find a 1985 D Washington quarter in your pocket or coin jar, know that while its monetary value might only be a quarter, it still holds historical value as a piece of American coinage heritage. For new collectors, it's a great coin to start with. Easy to find, inexpensive to obtain, and a solid example of late 20th century U.S. minting. Next up, we're going to take a closer look at the 1974 Washington quarter dollar coin. It might seem like just another everyday coin, but it actually has an interesting place in the history of American coinage. We'll walk through its background, mintage, design details, metal composition, and of course, its current value depending on condition. Let's begin with some background. The Washington quarter was first introduced in 1932 to commemorate the 200th anniversary of George Washington's birth. Its popularity led to it becoming the standard design for the U.S. quarter. The obverse, or front, features a left-facing portrait of George Washington, designed by sculptor John Flanagan. That same design remained in place for decades, including the 1974 issue. On the reverse of the 1974 quarter, you'll find the iconic eagle with wings spread wide, clutching a bundle of arrows and resting above an olive branch. This reverse design represents strength through preparedness and a desire for peace. It's a classic American image and was the standard reverse from 1932 until the launch of the state quarters in 1999. Now let's talk about the minting. The 1974 Washington quarter was struck at two main U.S. mint facilities, Philadelphia and Denver. If your coin has no mint mark, it was made in Philadelphia. If it has a small D mint mark on the obverse to the right of Washington's ponytail, it came from the Denver Mint. Both mints produced a high number of quarters that year. In fact, over 350 million were struck in Philadelphia and over 350 million in Denver. That adds up to more than 700 million quarters in total, making the 1974 issue very common in circulation. In terms of composition, the 1974 Washington quarter is made of a copper nickel clad, a pure copper core with outer layers made of 75% copper and 25% nickel. This composition was introduced in 1965 to replace the 90% silver used in quarters before then. So, no, the 1974 quarter does not contain any silver, and its base metal value is less than $0.25. So what is a 1974 Washington quarter worth today? In average circulated condition, which includes most coins still found in pocket change, it is worth its face value of 25 cents. You'll often find these with noticeable wear on Washington's hair, flattening on the eagle's feathers, and some scratches or discoloration from decades of use. However, if you come across a 1974 quarter in uncirculated or mint state condition, meaning it shows no signs of wear and has strong luster, it can be worth more. A 1974 quarter-graded MS-63 might sell for around $1 to $3. Coins in higher grades like MS-65 or MS-66 could fetch $10 to $30, and those in superb condition graded MS-67 or higher might reach $100 or more at auction. But finding one in such high grade directly from circulation is extremely rare. There are no widely recognized major errors or varieties for the 1974 Washington quarter, but it's always good practice to check your coins carefully. Look for oddities like off-center strikes, broad strikes, missing layers, or die cracks. These types of minting errors can make a common coin much more desirable to collectors, sometimes increasing its value significantly depending on the type and severity of the error. One important thing to note is that there is no 1974 business strike quarter. Only proof versions were made at the San Francisco Mint. So, if you ever find a quarter with a shiny finish and a small S mint mark, that's a proof coin originally sold to collectors, not a circulation coin. Next up, the Washington quarter was first introduced in 1932 to celebrate the 200th anniversary of George Washington's birth. Its design, created by sculptor John Flanagan, features a left-facing portrait of Washington on the obverse, along with the inscriptions "Liberty," "In God We Trust," and the mint year, in this case, 1982. The reverse shows an eagle with outstretched wings perched on a bundle of arrows above an olive branch, symbolizing both strength and a desire for peace. By 1982, this design had been used for 50 years. But the early 1980s also brought major economic challenges, including inflation and rising metal costs. Because of this, the U.S. Mint made several cost-cutting decisions, And that's where the 1982 Washington quarter becomes a bit more unique. In 1982, the Denver Mint struck over 480 million Washington quarters. These coins bear the small D mint mark on the obverse, to the right of Washington's ponytail. Like quarters minted after 1965, the 1982 D quarter is made of a copper-nickel-clad composition. It has a pure copper core with outer layers made of 75% copper and 25% nickel. So unlike quarters minted before 1965, it contains no silver. One of the most notable facts about 1982 quarters is that the U.S. Mint stopped producing uncirculated mint sets that year. That means collectors had fewer ways to get pristine examples of 1982 coins. Most 1982 quarters that exist today have been heavily circulated. And if you've found a 1982 D quarter in bad condition, meaning it has worn surfaces, faded details, and possibly scratches or dings, it falls into that majority. So what's a 1982 D Washington quarter worth in bad or heavily circulated condition? The honest answer is, it's worth 25 cents, its face value. Because the coin is so common and lacks precious metals, worn examples simply don't carry any premium in the collector's market. Collectors generally seek coins in much better condition, such as mint state or near mint state examples, especially because uncirculated coins from this year are harder to find. That said, higher grade 1982 D quarters can be worth more. A coin in mint state 63 might be worth around $4 to $6. If you happen to find one graded MS 65 or higher, the value could rise to $15 or more, with the top-graded examples occasionally selling for over $100 at auction. But again, these are rare, and most pocket change examples in bad condition won't come close to that. One more interesting thing about 1982 D quarters. Some collectors hunt for a rare variety called the No Mint Mark 1982 P quarter, but that variety only applies to coins from the Philadelphia Mint, not Denver. So if your coin has a D, you can rule out that rare error. While the 1982 D Washington quarter in bad condition doesn't hold much monetary value, it still tells an important part of America's economic story. It represents a time when the U.S. Mint was adapting to budget constraints and shifting priorities. And if you're a collector, even a worn 1982 D quarter can fill a valuable spot in a complete Washington quarter series. Thanks for watching. If you enjoy learning about coin values and U.S. coin history, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and tap the bell for notifications. Whether you're collecting, coin roll hunting, or just curious, there's always more to discover in the world of coins. Until next time,
Washington quarter dollar coin might look like just another coin from the 1980s. But for collectors and history lovers, it's a fascinating piece of American coinage. This coin was struck at the Denver Mint, as denoted by the D mint mark, and it carries with it a legacy that traces all the way back to the original Washington quarter introduced in 1932. The design of the Washington quarter features a portrait of George Washington, the first president of the United States, on the obverse. This iconic image was created by sculptor John Flanagan and was based on a bust of Washington made by French artist Jean-Antoine Houdin in the 18th century. Washington's portrait has appeared on the quarter ever since, with only a few changes made over the decades, especially during the State Quarters program and later the America the Beautiful series. The 1984D quarter was made from a copper nickel-clad composition, which had become the standard for quarters since 1965, when the United States Mint ended the use of 90% silver due to rising silver prices. The coin weighs 5.67 grams, has a diameter of 24.3 millimeters, and features a reeded edge. On the reverse of the coin, you'll find a majestic bald eagle with outstretched wings, perched on a bundle of arrows and surrounded by olive branches, a powerful symbol of America's readiness for defense and desire for peace. This reverse design was also created by John Flanagan and used on all Washington quarters from 1932 until 1998. In terms of mintage, the 1984D Washington quarter was produced in large numbers. The Denver Mint struck approximately 546,483,064 quarters that year, making it a common coin in circulation. Because of this high mintage, most circulated examples today are worth only their face value of 25 cents. However, collectors are often on the lookout for well-preserved, high-grade examples, as coins with minimal wear and full details can be much more valuable. Coins graded mint state 65 or higher by professional grading services such as PCGs or NGC can command prices between $10 and $25, depending on market demand and visual appeal. What makes the 1984D quarter particularly interesting to some collectors is the presence of potential errors and die varieties. While this issue does not include any famously recognized varieties like other quarters from different years, some minor die cracks, die chips, and off-center strikes have been reported by collectors. These types of mint errors, while not officially cataloged in major coin references, can fetch higher prices among error coin enthusiasts, especially if they are dramatic and well preserved. One key point to remember about the 1984D Washington quarter is that coins from this era were not included in official U.S. mint sets in the same high-quality manner as earlier years, and many were handled roughly in circulation. That makes finding a brilliant, sharply struck example in perfect condition more of a challenge. Coin roll hunters sometimes search bankrolls looking for these better condition coins to add to their collections. Although the 1984D quarter is considered a modern common coin, it represents the steady and enduring presence of the Washington quarter series. For new collectors, it can be an accessible and affordable coin to begin a date and mint mark set. For seasoned numismatists, it serves as a reminder of how even ordinary coins from pocket change can hold historical and collectible value. Whether you're a casual hobbyist or a serious collector, examining your 1984D quarters for condition, strike quality, and possible errors can be both fun and rewarding. Next up, the 1981D Washington quarter dollar is a coin that many people overlook, but it holds an important place in American coinage history. Struck at the Denver Mint, the D mint mark appears just to the right of George Washington's ponytail on the obverse of the coin. While it may seem like just another pocket change quarter to some, collectors know that every coin has a story, and the 1981D Washington quarter is no exception. Let's start with the design. On the obverse of the coin is a left-facing bust of George Washington, the first president of the United States. This design, created by John Flanagan, was first introduced in 1932 to commemorate the 200th anniversary of Washington's birth. His portrait has been featured on the quarter ever since, though the design has gone through several updates over the years. The 1981 version retains the original style used throughout much of the 20th century. On the reverse side, you'll find a heraldic eagle with outstretched wings, clutching a bundle of arrows, with olive branches below, a design also by Flanagan. This imagery represents strength in defense and a preference for peace. The reverse carries the inscriptions, United States of America, E pluribus unum, and quarter dollar. The 1981D quarter was produced using the standard copper-nickel clad composition that had been adopted in 1965 to replace the previous 90% silver content. It weighs 5.67 grams, has a diameter of 24.3 millimeters, and features a reeded edge. These specifications have remained consistent for clad quarters for decades. Now let's talk about the mintage. The Denver Mint produced a total of 575,722,833 Washington quarters in 1981, a very high number, which makes this coin relatively common in circulated condition. Because of its high mintage, most 1981D quarters you find today will be heavily circulated, with plenty of wear. In fine condition, meaning the coin still has visible design details, but with moderate wear, it is generally worth face value, about 25 cents, or slightly more to a beginner collector. However, the value of this coin increases significantly with better grades. In extremely fine XF condition, it may be worth 50 cents to $1. In about uncirculated AU condition, the value can rise to $1 to $2, depending on the coin's appearance and sharpness of detail. For coins in mint state Ms. 65 or higher condition, the value can jump to $10 to $20, and exceptional examples graded Ms. 67 or above by PCGs or NGC can sell for $75 to $150 at auction. The highest recorded value for a pristine 1981D quarter is around to 50, but these are extremely rare and in top-tier condition. When evaluating a 1981D quarter, collectors often look for coins with sharp strike details, original luster, and minimal contact marks. Unfortunately, due to mass production, many of the coins from this year have weak strikes or small flaws from the minting process. Still, coins with a clean surface and strong details are considered premium examples. There are no widely recognized major errors for the 1981D quarter, but collectors always keep an eye out for minor anomalies such as die cracks, off-center strikes, or double dies. Any unique error can add value, especially if the coin is already in good condition. In summary, the 1981D Washington quarter is a common but essential part of the long-running Washington quarter series. While coins in fine condition don't carry a high premium, they still serve as an excellent introduction for new collectors and a foundation for building a full date and mint mark set. And if you happen to find a well-preserved and circulated example, especially one with an error, it could be worth far more than 25 cents. Next up, the 1995p Washington quarter dollar is one of those coins many people overlook because of how modern and common it seems. But take a closer look, and you'll discover a piece of American numismatic history that reflects the evolving story of the United States Mint, the enduring design of the Washington quarter, and the subtle details that can make this coin valuable to collectors. Let's begin with the design. On the obverse or front side of the coin, you'll see the familiar profile of George Washington, the first president of the United States. This portrait was created by sculptor John Flanagan in 1932 to commemorate the 200th anniversary of Washington's birth. Washington faces left, and the inscriptions include "Liberty, in God We Trust," and the year 1995. Just next to Washington's ponytail, you'll see the letter P, which identifies the Philadelphia Mint, where the coin was struck. Turning to the reverse of the coin, you'll find the classic image of a bald eagle with outstretched wings, clutching arrows and an olive branch beneath. This symbolizes America's readiness to defend itself, as well as its desire for peace. The reverse design also carries the inscriptions United States of America, E Pluribus Unum, and quarter dollar. This reverse design remained in use from 1932 until the state quarters program began in 1999. The 1995p quarter was made from the standard copper nickel-clad composition, which had replaced silver in 1965. It weighs 5.67 grams, measures 24.3 millimeters in diameter, and has a reeded edge. This makes it identical in specifications to other clad quarters of the era. Now, let's talk mintage. The Philadelphia Mint produced a staggering 1,004,336,000 quarters in 1995. That's right, over a billion coins. With such a high mintage, most of these coins entered circulation and experienced heavy wear. For that reason, the majority of 1995p quarters found today in pocket change are only worth face value 25 cents. However, for collectors, condition is everything. Coins in uncirculated condition, especially those graded Ms. 65 or higher, can be worth significantly more. In mint state, 65, a 1995p quarter typically sells for $5 to $10. Higher grades like Ms. 67 can bring $25 to $50. And superb gems graded Ms. 68 or better can reach prices of $150 or more. Depending on the sharpness of strike and eye appeal, there are no major error varieties officially recognized for the 1995p quarter, but some collectors have found minor Die cracks, strike-through errors, and off-center strikes that add interest and potential value. One thing to watch for is a strong strike with full details, as many 1990 quarters suffer from soft strikes that reduce their visual appeal in an uncirculated condition. Another important factor to keep in mind is that during the mid-1990s, coin collecting was seeing a resurgence in popularity. This means more people were saving coins in uncirculated condition. As a result, while the 1995p is common in circulated condition, high-grade examples are harder to come by and more valuable, while the 1995p quarter may not have any legendary rarity status. It's a key piece of the Washington Quarter series and represents the final years of the original eagle reverse design. Just 4 years later, the U.S. Mint launched the State Quarters program in 1999, which brought dramatic changes to quarter designs and inspired millions of new collectors. The 1995p quarter is one of the last of its kind. Before that major shift, in conclusion, if you have a 1995p Washington quarter in fine or average circulated condition, it's worth face value. But if you find one in uncirculated or near-perfect condition, especially with brilliant luster and few marks, it could be worth adding to your collection or even selling for a premium. And as always, it's worth keeping your eyes open for oddities, errors, or exceptionally well-struck examples, because even modern coins can hold surprising value. Next up, the 1985D Washington quarter may seem like just another coin from the 1980s, but behind its familiar design is a story of tradition, mass production, and collector potential. Struck at the Denver Mint, this coin carries the D Mint mark on the obverse just beside George Washington's ponytail. While billions were produced and circulated, this quarter still holds significance, especially when found in well-preserved condition. Let's begin with the design. The obverse, or front side, of the coin features a left-facing portrait of George Washington, the first president of the United States. This design was created by sculptor John Flanagan and was first introduced in 1932 to honor the 200th anniversary of Washington's birth. Since then, it has become a fixture on U.S. coinage. On the 1985D quarter, you'll also find the inscriptions "Liberty," "In God We Trust," and the date 1985. Turning to the reverse, you'll find the classic eagle design that appeared on all Washington quarters from 1932 until 1998. The bald eagle is shown perched on a bundle of arrows, symbolizing strength and readiness, with olive branches below to represent peace. Above the eagle are the inscriptions "United States of America" and "E Pluribus Unum," and below it reads "Quarter Dollar." This design, also by Flanagan, is both simple and deeply symbolic. In terms of composition, the 1985D quarter was struck from a copper nickel-clad composition, which had become the standard after silver was removed from circulating quarters in 1965. The coin weighs 5.67 grams, measures 24.3 millimeters in diameter, and features a reeded edge. The mintage of the 1985D quarter was massive. The Denver Mint produced approximately 519,962,888 coins that year. This high mintage means that most 1985D quarters are common in circulation and were heavily used in daily commerce. As a result, many of these coins show moderate to heavy wear today, in fine condition, which is a mid-grade for circulated coins. The details on both Washington's hair and the eagle's feathers are worn but still visible. A 1985D Washington quarter in fine condition typically holds only face value 25 cents because of its high mintage and lack of silver content. However, it still remains a great collectible for someone building a full date and mint mark collection of Washington quarters. If you're lucky enough to find a coin in extremely fine XF or about uncirculated AU condition, the value can rise slightly to around $0.5 to $1 depending on the coin's appearance. Where the real value lies is in mint state coins, those that were never circulated and retain full detail, mint luster, and minimal contact marks. A 1985D quarter in Ms. 65 condition may fetch around $5 to $10, while a coin in Ms. 67 or higher can be worth $50 to over $150. Depending on eye appeal and third-party grading, it's worth noting that while no major errors or varieties have been officially cataloged for the 1985D quarter, minor errors do occasionally surface. These can include off-center strikes, die cracks, or strike-throughs, and while most don't dramatically increase value, they can be appealing to error coin collectors, though the 1985D quarter is considered a modern issue with a high survival rate. It represents the final years before the U.S. Mint would launch the statehood quarter program in 1999, which transformed the face of American coinage. For collectors focusing on the original Eagle Reverse series, the 1985D is an important coin that continues the lineage from the 1930s through the late 20th century. In conclusion, while a 1985D Washington quarter in fine condition holds little monetary value beyond its face value, it's still part of a rich numismatic history. If you're a beginner collector or someone aiming to complete a full Washington quarter collection, it deserves a place in your book. And who knows, if you come across a brilliant uncirculated example or a rare mint error, it could be worth far more than just 25 cents. Next up, the 1974 Washington quarter may look like just another coin in your pocket, but it carries with it a piece of American monetary history. While millions were minted and most were heavily circulated, the 1974 quarter stands as a classic example of the pre-statehood quarter era, offering collectors a timeless design and a glimpse into U.S. mint production during the 1970s. Let's begin with the design. On the obverse or front of the coin, you'll see the left-facing profile of George Washington, the first president of the United States. This iconic portrait was created by John Flanagan and first appeared on the quarter in 1932 to mark the bicentennial of Washington's birth. Accompanying the portrait are the inscriptions, "Liberty, in God We Trust," and the year 1974. The reverse of the coin features a powerful heraldic eagle, wings spread, clutching a bundle of arrows to represent strength and readiness, and framed by olive branches to signify peace. This reverse design, also by Flanagan, had been used since the quarter's debut in 1932, and would remain until 1998, before the launch of the state quarters program. The 1974 Washington quarter was struck in a copper nickel-clad composition, which had been introduced in 1965 to replace the 90% silver content of earlier quarters. The coin weighs 5.67 grams, has a diameter of 24.3 millimeters, and features a reeded edge. Now, let's talk about mintage and mint marks. The 1974 quarter was struck at two U.S. mint facilities, Philadelphia and Denver. If your coin doesn't have a mint mark, it was made in Philadelphia. If it has a small d on the obverse, to the right of Washington's ponytail, it came from Denver. In total, the Philadelphia Mint produced 801,456,000 quarters in 1974, while the Denver Mint produced 353,160,300, making the Philadelphia version more common. In fine condition, a 1974 Washington quarter shows noticeable wear. Most details on Washington's hair and the eagle's feathers are worn smooth, but still identifiable. Coins in this condition are extremely common, and typically hold no extra value beyond face value 25 cents. However, collectors and coin dealers look for coins in better condition. In extremely fine XF condition, the value may rise to 30 to 50 cents. In about uncirculated AU condition, where the coin has only light wear and retains some original luster, it might be worth 50 cents to $1. Uncirculated coins, especially those graded Ms. 65 or higher, can command $5 to $15, while superb examples in Ms. 67 can reach $50 to $100 depending on the market. Though the 1974 quarter does not have any widely known or dramatic mint errors, minor die cracks, off-center strikes, or clipped planchets can still be found and are worth more to error collectors. These types of mint-made anomalies can increase the value significantly, especially if the error is bold and the coin remains in good condition. It's also important to note that in 1974, the U.S. Mint was preparing for a major event the following year, the American Bicentennial. While no quarters dated 1975 were struck, the Mint produced special dual-dated 1776 to 1976 quarters starting later in 1974 for the bicentennial. That makes the 1974 quarter the final regular Washington quarter before the famous bicentennial design took over. In summary, while a 1974 Washington quarter in fine condition is worth only face value, it remains an important part of U.S. coin history. It's a must-have for anyone collecting the Washington Quarter series from start to finish. And if you find one in high grade, or with an error, it could be worth far more than just 25 cents. Next up, the 1982D Washington Quarter may appear to be just another well-worn coin from pocket change, but it carries a unique place in American coinage history. This quarter was struck at the Denver Mint, indicated by the small D mint mark, found to the right of George Washington's ponytail on the obverse side of the coin. The obverse design features a left-facing portrait of George Washington, the first president of the United States, originally created by sculptor John Flanagan. This design was introduced in 1932 and remained on the Washington Quarter through 1998, becoming one of the most recognizable images in U.S. coin history. The inscriptions on the obverse include the word "Liberty" at the top, "In God We Trust" to the left of Washington's profile, and the date 1982 centered below. The reverse side of the coin displays a heraldic eagle with wings spread wide, perched on a bundle of arrows to symbolize strength, with olive branches beneath it as a sign of peace. The inscriptions, "United States of America" and "E Pluribus Unum" are placed above the eagle, while quarter dollar is found at the bottom. The 1982D Washington Quarter was minted using the standard copper-nickel-clad composition, consisting of a pure copper core surrounded by layers of copper and nickel. The coin weighs 5.67 grams, measures 24.3 millimeters in diameter, and features a reeded edge. In 1982, the U.S. Mint produced a substantial number of Washington quarters, with the Denver Mint striking approximately 480,042,788 coins. Although this number is quite large, what makes the 1982D quarter more interesting is the fact that the U.S. Mint did not produce official and circulated mint sets in 1982 or 1983. This decision was made due to federal budget constraints and cost-cutting measures at the time. As a result, most of the quarters struck in those years, including the 1982D, were released directly into circulation and used heavily. This lack of saved and circulated examples means that well-preserved 1982D quarters are much harder to find today, even though they were produced in high numbers. In terms of condition, a 1982D Washington Quarter found in bad condition will show heavy signs of wear. The details of Washington's hair may be smoothed down, the lettering may be faint or worn, and the eagle on the reverse may lack fine detail. Scratches, dings, and a dull appearance are common. In this state, the coin has no collector premium and is worth only its face value of 25 cents. It is a common coin in circulation and, without any special qualities or preserved condition, it holds no additional monetary value. However, collectors are still interested in high-grade examples of this coin due to the scarcity of mint state survivors. While a coin in bad condition may not be valuable, finding an uncirculated 1982D quarter can bring significantly higher prices. Mint state examples graded Ms. 65 can sell for around $10 to $20, and coins in grades Ms. 66 or higher can reach $50 or more, especially if the strike is strong and the surfaces are clean. Though no major or famous errors are associated with the 1982D quarter, collectors do occasionally find minor minting issues like off-center strikes, die cracks, or planchet flaws. These kinds of errors, especially when dramatic, can make even A worn coin more appealing to niche collectors. In conclusion, the 1982D Washington quarter in bad condition is a common coin that continues to circulate today and usually holds only its face value. Still, it stands out for its historical context, one of the few modern coins from a year with no official mint set release. While a worn example may not have collector value, it remains an important part of any Washington quarter collection, especially for those focused on completing a full set by date and mint mark. Every coin tells a story, and the 1982D quarter story is tied to a unique era in U.S. mint production, when economic conditions briefly changed the way coins were saved and collected in America.